Dr. Amanda Foster pushed her glasses up her nose and rubbed her tired eyes. She had been working at the Arecibo 2 listening station for 12 hours straight, and the coffee in her mug had gone cold long ago. The night shift was always quiet, but tonight something felt different. The computers kept beeping with new signals, and Amanda could not shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. She worked alone in the control room, surrounded by screens showing radio waves from deep space. Most of the signals were just noise from stars and planets, but Amanda loved her job. She had always dreamed of finding proof that humans were not alone in the universe. Every night she listened to the cosmic radio waves, hoping to hear something that would change everything. The first strange signal came at 11:47 p.m. Amanda almost missed it, because she was writing in her logbook. The computer made a soft beeping sound, and she looked up to see a new pattern on her screen. It was not like anything she had seen before. The signal was too organized to be natural, too complex to be random noise. Amanda leaned forward and studied the data. The signal was coming from a star system 47 light-years away. It was repeating the same pattern over and over, like someone was trying to send a message. Her heart started beating faster. This could be it. This could be the proof that other intelligent life existed in the universe. She called her supervisor, Dr. Marcus Webb, even though it was almost midnight. Webb was a serious man who did not like to be disturbed, but Amanda knew this was important. The phone rang 5 times before he answered. "This better be good, Foster," Webb said in a sleepy voice. "Dr. Webb, I think you need to see this. I have a signal that looks artificial. It's been repeating for the past 20 minutes. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Webb said, "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't touch anything." Amanda spent the next half hour studying the signal. It was definitely not natural. The pattern was too perfect, too mathematical. Someone or something was trying to communicate across the vast emptiness of space. She felt excited and scared at the same time. If this was real, it would be the most important discovery in human history. Dr. Webb arrived with 2 other scientists, Dr. Helen Curtis and Dr. Carl Rogers. They gathered around Amanda's workstation and studied the data. The signal was still coming in, strong and clear. "Run it through the pattern analysis program," Webb ordered. Amanda typed commands into her computer. The analysis program was designed to look for mathematical patterns in radio signals. If aliens were trying to communicate, they would probably use mathematics because it was universal. 2 + 2 = 4 everywhere in the universe. The program worked for 10 minutes. Then it beeped, and the results appeared on the screen. Amanda's mouth fell open. The signal contained prime numbers, the Fibonacci sequence, and geometric patterns. It was definitely artificial. Someone was trying to talk to them. "My God," whispered Dr. Curtis. "This is it. This is first contact." But as the hours passed, Amanda began to realize that the signal was not a greeting. It was something much more serious. The pattern kept repeating, but it was getting weaker. It felt desperate, like someone was calling for help. Dr. Rogers worked on decoding the signal, while Amanda continued monitoring it. He was an expert in mathematics and code breaking. If anyone could figure out what the aliens were trying to say, it was him. At 4:30 a.m., Rogers made a breakthrough. He had been working with a computer program that looked for patterns in the signal. Suddenly, he stood up and pointed at his screen. "Look at this," he said. "The signal is not just random patterns. It's a language. They're using mathematical concepts to represent words and ideas." Amanda watched as Rogers explained his discovery. The aliens were using simple math to create a basic vocabulary. The number 1 meant we or us. The number 2 meant help or assistance. The number 3 meant danger or threat. As Rogers decoded more of the signal, a terrifying picture began to emerge. The aliens were not trying to say hello. They were screaming for help. Their world was under attack. Their people were dying. They were sending out a desperate message to anyone who might be listening. "We are the Zelani," Rogers translated as more of the signal became clear. "Our world burns. The Krovic Empire shows no mercy. If any civilization receives this, please Help us, we are dying. The room fell silent. Amanda felt a chill run down her spine. Somewhere in the darkness of space, an entire civilization was being destroyed. The Zilani had sent out this message as a last hope, not knowing if anyone would ever hear it. The signal continued, and Rogers kept translating. The Zilani included information about their star system, their planet's location, and the size of their population. They also described their attackers. The Krovic Empire was a vast military force that traveled from star to star, conquering or destroying any intelligent life they found. They've been broadcasting this message for 3 days, Amanda said, checking her records. How many people do you think are already dead? Nobody answered. The weight of the situation was overwhelming. An entire species was crying out for help, and Earth was the only one listening. Dr. Webb picked up his phone and dialed a number. Amanda knew he was calling the Global Defense Council, the organization that made decisions about Earth's military and space programs. This was too big for scientists to handle alone. This is Dr. Webb at Arecibo 2, he said into the phone. I need to speak to General Patricia Hayes immediately. We have a Code 7 situation. Code 7 was the highest alert level reserved for threats to human survival. But this was not a threat to Earth. This was a cry for help from strangers, who lived so far away that their light took 47 years to reach Earth. As Webb spoke to the military officials, Amanda continued listening to the Zilani signal. She could hear the desperation in their mathematical language. They were sending everything they knew about their attackers, hoping that someone somewhere might be able to help them. The Zilani described the Krovic ships as massive and powerful. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities from space. They had been attacking the Zilani worlds for weeks, and there was no sign that they would stop until every Zilani was dead. Why? Amanda whispered to herself. Why would anyone want to destroy a whole civilization? Rogers looked up from his translation work. According to this, the Krovic Empire has been doing this for thousands of years. They travel from star to star, taking what they want and destroying the rest. The Zilani say they've wiped out dozens of other species. Amanda felt sick. She had always imagined that first contact with aliens would be a moment of joy and wonder. Instead, she was listening to the death cries of an entire species, and learning that the universe was full of creatures who killed for no reason except that they could. The signal from the Zilani continued through the night. As the sun rose over the radio telescope, Amanda knew that everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but they had learned this truth in the worst possible way. Somewhere in the darkness between the stars, evil existed. And now Earth knew about it. The question was, what would humanity do with this knowledge? Would they ignore the cry for help because it came from strangers who lived impossibly far away? Or would they find a way to answer the call, no matter how dangerous it might be? Amanda looked at the signal on her screen and made a silent promise to the Zilani. Someone had heard their cry for help. Someone cared about what happened to them. And if there was any way to help them, humanity would find it. General Patricia Hayes stood in the Situation Room deep beneath the Pentagon, staring at the large screen that showed the decoded alien message. She had been called from her bed at 5 a.m., and now, 3 hours later, she was trying to make sense of the impossible situation that had landed on her desk. Around the table sat the most powerful people in the world. President Lisa Carter had flown in from Washington. Admiral Kevin Price represented the Space Navy. Dr. Marcus Webb sat with his translation team, still working to decode more of the Zilani signal. Everyone looked tired and worried. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, President Carter sighed, rubbing her temples. We received a distress call from aliens who are being wiped out by other aliens, and they want us to help them. That's correct, Madam President, General Hayes replied. The Zilani have been under attack for weeks. According to our calculations, their population has dropped from 800 million to less than 200 million in just 21 days. Admiral Price leaned forward. With respect, General, these people are 47 light years away. Even if we wanted to help them, our fastest ships would take over 200 years to reach their system. By the time we got there, This war would be ancient history. Dr. Webb cleared his throat. Actually, Admiral, that's not entirely true. The Zelani signal includes technical information about faster-than-light travel. They're sharing their technology with us, hoping we might be able to use it. The room fell silent. Everyone knew that humanity had been trying to develop faster-than-light travel for decades, but the physics seemed impossible. If the aliens had figured it out, it would change everything. How long would it take our scientists to build this technology? President Carter asked. Dr. Helen Curtis has been working on the physics all night, Webb replied. She thinks we might be able to modify our existing ships in a matter of days, not years. The Zelani equations are incredibly advanced, but they're also simple enough that we can understand them. General Hayes stood up and walked to the screen. Madam President, I've been thinking about this situation from a military perspective. If we can reach the Zelani system quickly, we might be able to help them. But more importantly, we need to think about what this means for Earth. Explain, Carter said. The Krovic Empire has been destroying civilizations for thousands of years. Hayes said, they're not going to stop with the Zelani. Eventually, they'll come for us too. We can either fight them now, when we have potential allies, or we can wait for them to find Earth and face them alone. Admiral Price shook his head. General, you're talking about starting a war with an alien empire we know nothing about. We don't know how many ships they have, how powerful their weapons are, or even how many star systems they control. This could be suicide. Doing nothing could also be suicide, Hayes replied. At least if we act now, we might save the Zelani and gain valuable allies. President Carter looked around the table. What do our military experts think about our chances? Colonel. Don Mitchell, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Madam President, I've been studying the information the Zelani sent about Krovic military tactics. They rely on overwhelming firepower and terror weapons. They're used to fighting enemies who have no space technology and no organized military. And? Carter prompted. They've never fought anyone like us, Mitchell said. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We understand strategy, tactics, and logistics. The Krovic Empire sounds like they're used to easy victories against defenseless opponents. Dr. Curtis entered the room carrying a tablet computer. She looked exhausted but excited. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've made a breakthrough with the Zelani technology. We can modify our ships to travel faster than light, but we need to act quickly. How quickly? General Hayes asked. If we start now, we can have 12 ships ready in 72 hours, Curtis replied, but we need to begin construction immediately. President. Carter stood up. Dr. Curtis, how dangerous is this technology? There are risks, Curtis admitted. We're dealing with forces we don't fully understand. But the Zelani have been using this technology for centuries. If they can do it, so can we. The president looked around the room one more time. I need to know something. If we do this, if we send our ships to help the Zelani, what are our chances of success? Admiral Price answered honestly. Unknown, Madam President. We're talking about the unknown. We don't know what we're flying into. But we know what happens if we do nothing, General Hayes added. The Zelani die, and eventually the Krovic Empire finds Earth. At least this way we have a chance to make a difference. President Carter closed her eyes and thought for a long moment. When she opened them, her expression was determined. I'm authorizing Operation Rescue. We're going to help the Zelani. The room erupted in activity. General Hayes immediately began making phone calls to military bases around the world. Admiral Price started planning the mission with his staff officers. Dr. Curtis rushed back to her laboratory to begin modifying the ships. Over the next 3 days, the most incredible military preparation in human history took place. 12 heavy cruisers and 35 destroyers were pulled from regular duty and brought to the orbital shipyards. Thousands of engineers and technicians worked around the clock to install the new, faster-than-light engines. Captain Ryan Stone stood on the bridge of the TDF Vengeance, watching the installation of the new drive systems. He had been chosen to lead the mission because of his experience in deep space operations. But nothing had prepared him for this. "Captain," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving another transmission from the Zelani." Stone walked over to the communications station. The new message was shorter than the previous ones, but much more desperate. The Zelani were reporting that more of their cities had been destroyed. Their population was now down to less than 100 million people. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "they're thanking us." "Thanking us? For what?" "They detected our radio transmissions. They know we're preparing to help them. They're saying that just knowing someone cares has given them hope." Stone felt a weight settle on his shoulders. Somewhere in the darkness of space, an entire species was counting on him and his crew. They had never met these aliens, but they were willing to risk everything to help them. Dr. Marcus Webb arrived on the bridge carrying a portable computer. "Captain, I finished translating the latest Zelani transmission. They're sending us tactical information about the Krovic forces." Stone looked at the data. The Krovic Empire had 47 ships in the Zelani system, including several massive dreadnoughts. The human fleet would be outnumbered, but Stone had been studying the enemy tactics. The Krovic relied on brute force and intimidation. They had never faced organized resistance. "Dr. Webb," Stone said, "send a message back to the Zelani. Tell them we're coming." Webb typed on his computer for several minutes, then he looked up. "Message sent, Captain. I told them that the people of Earth have heard their cry for help, and we're on our way." 2 days later, the human fleet was ready. 47 ships equipped with technology they barely understood, crewed by people who had never seen combat in space. But they were going anyway, because somewhere in the darkness, people were dying and calling for help. Captain Stone stood on his bridge as the fleet prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed. He thought about the Zelani, about the families, hiding in bunkers while their world burned above them. He thought about the Krovic Empire, traveling from star to star, destroying everything in their path. "All ships report ready for jump," his navigation officer announced. Stone took a deep breath. "Take us to the Zelani system. It's time to answer their call for help." The stars streaked past the viewports as the human fleet jumped into the unknown, carrying with them the hopes of 2 civilizations and the promise that no cry for help would go unanswered. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zelani system, and Captain Ryan Stone immediately knew they had arrived in hell. Through the viewports of the TDF Vengeance, he could see 3 planets glowing with unnatural light. The worlds were burning. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez, his tactical officer. "What have they done to this place?" Stone walked to the main viewing screen where the computer was displaying sensor data. The Zelani system had once been home to 4 inhabited worlds. Now only one planet still showed signs of life, and even that world was under attack. Massive ships hung in orbit above it, firing energy beams down at the surface. "How many survivors?" Stone asked. Rodriguez checked her instruments. "Sensors are picking up underground shelters on the main planet. Maybe 50 million people, sir. They're hiding in bunkers and caves." Stone felt sick. When the Zelani had first sent their distress call, they had 800 million people. Now only 50 million remained alive. The Krovic Empire had killed over 700 million beings in just a few weeks. "Sir," called out Ensign Pete Johnson from the communications station, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it through," Stone ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was weak and filled with pain. But the translation program Dr. Webb had installed was working. "Unknown ships, this is Elder Keth of the Zelani Council. Are you the ones who answered our call?" Stone picked up the microphone. "This is Captain Ryan Stone of the Terran Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal. We've come to help you." There was a long pause. Then Elder Keth's voice came back, stronger now. "Terran, you are from the 3rd planet of the Yellow Star? You traveled so far?" "Yes," Stone replied. "We heard your cry for help. We couldn't ignore it." "The Krovic do not know you are here yet," Elder Keth said. "They are focused on destroying our last cities. But they will detect you soon. You must flee while you can. Your ships are too small to fight them." Stone looked around his bridge. His crew was young and inexperienced, but they were ready to fight. Elder Keth, we didn't come here to run away. We came here to help you. Lieutenant Rodriguez was studying the enemy ships on her tactical display. Captain, I count 47. Krovic vessels, most of them are twice the size of our ships. Some of the big ones are 5 times larger than anything we have. What about weapons? Stone asked. Unknown, sir. But they're using some kind of energy beam to attack the planet. The power readings are enormous. Stone made his decision. Send a message to all ships, battle stations, we're going in. The human fleet moved deeper into the system. Their ships spread out in a formation that Dr. Curtis had designed based on the Zolani's description of Krovic tactics. The plan was simple: hit fast, hit hard, and try to confuse the enemy, the first Krovic ship to detect them was a massive dreadnought that was bombarding one of the Zolani cities. The alien vessel was over 2 kilometers long and covered with weapon systems. It looked like a flying fortress. They're turning toward us, Rodriguez reported. I think they're trying to communicate. Put it through, Stone ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical. The translation program had some trouble with the Krovic language, but the meaning was clear. Unknown vessels, you are entering Krovic space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Stone picked up the microphone. This is Captain Stone of the Terran Defense Fleet. You are attacking innocent people. Stop your bombardment and withdraw from this system. The Krovic voice laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Terran, we have never heard of your species. You will make interesting slaves if any of you survive. I don't think so, Stone replied. All ships attack Pattern Alpha. Target the big ships first. The human fleet split into 3 groups and attacked the Krovic forces from different directions. The alien ships were powerful, but they were not expecting organized resistance. For thousands of years, they had only fought species that had no space technology or military training. The first exchange of fire lasted only seconds, but it changed everything. The Krovic energy beams were devastating, but they were slow and clumsy. The human ships were faster and more agile. They darted between the massive alien vessels like small fish attacking whales. Direct hit on the lead dreadnought, Rodriguez reported. Their shields are down by 30%. Stone smiled grimly. The human weapons were working. The Krovic ships were powerful, but they were not invincible. Continue the attack. Don't let them target our ships. The battle spread across the system as more Krovic vessels joined the fight. The aliens had never faced an enemy that could move so quickly or shoot so accurately. Their massive ships were designed to intimidate defenseless opponents, not to fight against trained military forces. Captain Jennifer Martinez of the TDF. Lightning was leading one of the attack groups when she noticed something important. All ships, this is Martinez. The Krovic vessels are having trouble tracking our movements. I think their targeting systems are designed for slower ships. Stone immediately understood. All ships, increase speed. Use evasive maneuvers. Keep moving and don't let them lock onto you. The human ships began flying in complex patterns, weaving between the Krovic vessels and firing at their weak points. The aliens tried to respond, but their huge ships were too slow to keep up with the human attack patterns on the surface of the Zolani homeworld. Elder Keth and his people watched the battle through their underground sensors. For the first time in weeks, they had hope. The newcomers were actually fighting the Krovic Empire and winning. How are they doing this? Asked Elder Keth's assistant, a young Zolani named Nira. Their ships are so small compared to the Krovic dreadnoughts. They fight differently, Elder Keth replied. The Krovic rely on fear and overwhelming power. But these humans use strategy and speed. They turn the Krovic size against them. Above them, the battle continued. The human fleet had destroyed 6 Krovic ships and damaged many more. But the aliens were learning from their mistakes. The Krovic commander was beginning to coordinate his forces better. Captain, Rodriguez called. Out. The enemy ships are changing formation. They're trying to surround us. Stone saw the danger immediately. The Krovic vessels were slower than the human ships, but they had more firepower. If they could trap the human fleet, they could destroy it with concentrated fire. All ships withdraw to the outer system, Stone ordered. We need to regroup. The human fleet pulled back, but they had accomplished something important. They had shown the Krovic Empire that they could be hurt. More importantly, they had shown the Zilani that the Krovic were not invincible. As the human ships regrouped, Stone received another transmission from Elder Keth. Captain Stone, we cannot thank you enough. For the first time since the attack began, the Krovic have stopped bombing our cities. You have given us hope. This is just the beginning, Stone replied. We're not leaving until every Krovic ship is gone from your system. Rodriguez looked at her sensor display. Captain, we damaged 11 of their ships, but we still have 41 enemy vessels to deal with, and now they know we're here. Stone nodded. The first battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The Krovic Empire had ruled through fear for thousands of years, but now they faced an enemy they had never encountered before. Humans who refused to be intimidated, who fought with courage and intelligence, and who would never abandon those who called for help. Send a message to Admiral Price, Stone said. Tell him we've made contact with the enemy. The Krovic are powerful, but they can be beaten. We're going to need reinforcements, but we're not backing down. The message was sent across the vast distance to Earth, carrying news that would change both civilizations forever. The battle for the Zilani system had begun, and humanity had fired. The first shot in a war that would decide the fate of the galaxy. News of the human victory at Zilani Prime spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The Krovic Empire had communication networks that stretched across hundreds of star systems, and word of their first defeat in 1,000 years shocked everyone who heard it. Emperor Vex sat on his throne aboard the massive command ship Destroyer of Worlds, reading the reports from the Zilani system. His 4 eyes glowed with rage as he learned that a species he had never heard of had dared to attack his forces. How many ships did we lose? He demanded from his military commander, General Thak. 15 vessels were destroyed, my lord, Thak replied, his voice shaking with fear. Another 23 were damaged. The enemy ships were small but very fast. And how many enemy ships did we destroy? None, my lord. They withdrew before we could land a killing blow. Emperor Vex stood up from his throne, his massive form towering over his officers. The Krovic were a warrior race that had conquered the galaxy through brutality and overwhelming force. They had never faced organized resistance before. Gather the Imperial War Fleet, Vex ordered. 300 ships. We will crush these insects and make an example of them that the galaxy will never forget. But Captain Rhinestone was not waiting for the Krovic to bring reinforcements. He had studied the enemy during the first battle and found their weakness. The Krovic ships were powerful but slow, and their commanders were not used to fighting against intelligent opponents. We need to hit them before they can regroup, Stone told his officers during a strategy meeting. The Zilani have given us locations of Krovic supply bases and communication stations. If we can destroy those, we can cut off their ability to coordinate attacks. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez spread out star charts on the table. Sir, there are 12 Krovic bases within 20 light years of here. Most of them are lightly defended because they've never been attacked before. That's about to change, Stone said grimly. The human fleet split into 4 groups, each targeting different Krovic installations. Stone led the first group to a supply depot called Station 7, where the Krovic stored weapons and fuel for their warships. The attack on Station 7 lasted only 10 minutes. The Krovic defenders were completely unprepared for a coordinated assault. Their massive station was designed to intimidate, not to fight. The human ships destroyed the station's defenses and then blew up the supply warehouses. Captain Jennifer Martinez led the second group to a communications base on the edge of Krovic space. The base was responsible for coordinating Krovic movements across 50 star systems. When Martinez's ships destroyed it, dozens of Krovic fleets suddenly found themselves unable to communicate with their commanders. The third and fourth groups achieved similar successes. In less than 2 days, the human fleet had destroyed 8 Krovic installations and damaged 4 more. The Krovic Empire, which had ruled through fear for millennia, suddenly found itself under attack from an enemy they could not catch, but the most important victory was not military, it was psychological. Dr. Helen Curtis had been working with the Zilani to broadcast messages throughout Krovic space, and her words were reaching species that had been enslaved for generations. "People of the galaxy," Curtis's voice said in dozens of different languages, "you are not alone. The Krovic Empire tells you that resistance is impossible, but that is a lie. We are humanity, and we come from a star system far away. We heard the cry for help from the Zilani, and we came to answer it. The Krovic can be defeated. Rise up, fight back. You do not have to live in fear anymore." The message was simple, but it spread like wildfire through the galaxy's communication networks. On planets that had been enslaved for centuries, people began to whisper about the humans who had come from nowhere to fight the Krovic Empire. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, a species called the Torgan had been slaves for 300 years. When they heard Curtis's message, their leader, an old female named Zara, gathered her people in secret. "The message is true," Zara told them. "My sensors detected the battles in the Zilani system. Someone is fighting the Krovic and winning. If they can do it, so can we." The Torgan rebellion began that night. Using tools from the mines, they attacked the Krovic guards and captured their weapons. Within hours, they had taken control of their planet. Similar uprisings began on dozens of worlds. The Krovic Empire had controlled these planets through fear and overwhelming force, but they had never faced coordinated resistance from multiple species at the same time. Emperor Vex received reports of the rebellions with growing fury. "How many worlds have we lost?" he demanded. 47 planets have declared independence," General Thek reported. "The rebellions are spreading faster than we can respond to them." "And the humans?" "They continue to attack our supply lines and communication bases. Our fleets cannot coordinate properly without the communication network." Vex slammed his fist on the arm of his throne. "Then we will destroy them all. Ready the Imperial fleet? We will burn every world that has rebelled against us, starting with the humans." But Stone had anticipated this response. He had been studying Krovic tactics for weeks, and he understood their psychology. The Krovic were bullies who relied on fear and intimidation. When faced with organized resistance, they would respond with overwhelming force. "They're going to come after us with everything they have," Stone told his officers. "We need to be ready." The human fleet had grown since the first battle. Admiral Kevin Price had arrived with reinforcements from Earth, bringing the total number of human ships to 93. More importantly, they had been joined by ships from the liberated worlds. The Torgan had modified their mining equipment into weapons. The aquatic species from Kepler 186f had built fast attack boats that could fight in space. Even the Zilani, despite their losses, had managed to repair some of their damaged ships. "We're not fighting alone anymore," Stone realized as he looked at the mixed fleet gathered around the Zilani homeworld. "We've got allies." Elder Keth came aboard the TDF Vengeance to meet with the human commanders. The old Zilani looked tired but determined. "Captain Stone, my people owe you a debt we can never repay. You came when we called for help, and you have given us hope when we had none." "You don't owe us anything," Stone replied. "We did what any decent people would do. We heard someone calling for help, and we answered." "The Krovic Empire is sending their main fleet," Elder Keth warned. 300 ships, including the Emperor's personal command vessel. They mean to destroy us all." Stone nodded. "Then we'll be ready for them. We've learned how to fight the Krovic, and we've taught our allies the same tactics. They're about to face something they've never seen before. What is that?" Elder Keth asked. Stone smiled grimly. "A galaxy that fights back." The stage was set for the final battle. The Krovic Empire, which had ruled through fear for thousands of years, was about to face a united alliance of species who had learned that the bullies could be beaten. At the center of this alliance were the humans, who had answered a cry for help from strangers and started a revolution that would change the Galaxy forever. As the Imperial fleet approached the Zilani system, Stone stood on his bridge and thought about the long journey that had brought them here. It had started with a simple radio signal, a desperate cry for help from people they had never met. Now it would end with the greatest battle in galactic history. The Krovic were coming, and they would find an enemy ready to fight. The Krovic Imperial fleet arrived at the Zilani system like a storm of death and metal. 300 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their weapons already charging for battle. At the center of the fleet was Emperor Vex's command ship, the Destroyer of Worlds, a vessel so large it could be seen with the naked eye from the planet's surface. Captain Ryan Stone stood on the bridge of the TDF Vengeance, watching the enemy fleet take position. The human ships were outnumbered 3-1, but they were no longer alone. Ships from 12 liberated worlds had joined the fight, bringing the Allied fleet to nearly 200 vessels. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez reported, "the enemy is forming attack formation. The Emperor's ship is staying in the back, protected by his heaviest vessels." Stone nodded. The Krovic were following their standard pattern. They would try to crush their enemies with overwhelming firepower while keeping their leader safe. But Stone had a different plan. "All ships, this is Captain Stone," he announced over the communication system. "Today we end the Krovic Empire's reign of terror. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Zilani anymore. We're fighting for every species that has suffered under Krovic rule. Show them what happens when free people fight together." Elder Cat's voice came through the speakers from the planet below. "Ships of the Alliance, you carry the hopes of billions. The galaxy is watching. Make them proud." The battle began when Emperor Vex himself spoke across all communication channels. His voice was filled with rage and contempt. "Insects of the Alliance, you have dared to challenge the might of the Krovic Empire. Today you will learn why we have ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." Stone picked up his microphone. "Emperor Vex, this is Captain Ryan Stone of the Human Defense Fleet. We've heard your threats before. Today the galaxy learns that bullies can be beaten. Humans," Vex spat, "you will be the first to die." The Krovic fleet moved forward like a wall of destruction. Their massive ships fired energy beams that could destroy a city, but the Alliance fleet was ready. The human ships led the charge, their smaller vessels darting between the enemy giants like wolves attacking bears. Captain Jennifer Martinez of the TDF Lightning dove her ship under a Krovic dreadnought and fired directly into its engine section. The explosion lit up space like a new star. "One down," she called over the radio. "Keep moving, don't let them pin you down." The Torgan ships, converted from mining vessels, proved surprisingly effective. Their industrial cutting lasers could slice through Krovic armor like butter. Zara, the old Torgan leader, commanded her small fleet with the wisdom of someone who had fought for freedom her entire life. "Torgan ships, target their weapon systems," she ordered. "Make them helpless, then finish them." The battle spread across the entire system. Ships from a dozen different species worked together, each using their own strengths to attack the Krovic. Weaknesses. The aquatic species from Kepler 186f used hit-and-run tactics. They had learned hunting in their ocean world. The crystal beings from Rigel 7 coordinated their attacks with mathematical precision, but the Krovic were not helpless. Their ships were larger and more heavily armed than anything the Alliance had. When they managed to hit an enemy vessel, the result was devastating. Stone watched in horror as 3 Zilani ships were destroyed in a single volley from a Krovic super dreadnought. "We're losing too many ships," Rodriguez reported. "The enemy firepower is too concentrated." Stone made a decision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "All human ships follow my lead. We're going after the Emperor himself." The human fleet broke away from the main battle and headed straight for the Destroyer of Worlds. It was a desperate move, but Stone knew that the Krovic Empire was built around fear and the worship of their emperor. If Vex fell, the entire empire might collapse. "Captain, that's suicide," Rodriguez protested. The Emperor's ship is surrounded by 50 dreadnoughts. Then we'll have to go through them. Stone replied. The TDF Vengeance led 20 human ships in a direct assault on the heart of the Krovik fleet. Enemy fire filled space around them as they raced toward their target. The TDF Boston took a direct hit and exploded. The TDF Chicago lost power and drifted helplessly. But the remaining ships kept going. Admiral Kevin Price, commanding the TDF Unity, used his ship to shield the others from enemy fire. "Go," he radioed to Stone. "Finish this. That's an order." Price's ship exploded seconds later, but his sacrifice gave Stone the opening he needed. The TDF Vengeance broke through the Krovik defensive line and headed straight for the Destroyer of Worlds. Emperor Vex watched the human ship approach on his viewscreen. He had ruled the galaxy for 3 centuries, crushing anyone who dared to oppose him, but these humans were different. They fought with a courage and determination he had never seen before. "Destroy that ship," he ordered his gunners. "We're trying, my lord," came the reply. "But it keeps changing direction. Our targeting systems cannot lock onto it." Stone pushed his ship to its limits, dodging the massive energy beams that filled space around him. The TDF Vengeance shook under the impact of near misses, but Stone kept going. He had made a promise to the Zilani and he was going to keep it. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "I have a clear shot at their bridge." "Take it," Stone ordered. The TDF Vengeance fired every weapon it had at the command section of the Destroyer of Worlds. The massive ship's shields held for a moment, then collapsed under the concentrated fire. Stone's weapons punched through the armor and into the Emperor's throne room. Emperor Vex felt his ship shake around him as the human weapons found their target. He looked at the viewscreen and saw the small human ship, damaged but still fighting. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before: fear. "My lord," General Thuck called out, "the ship is losing power. We need to evacuate," but it was too late. The damage was too severe. The Destroyer of Worlds, the symbol of Krovik power for 1,000 years, was dying. Stone watched as the massive ship broke apart in a series of explosions. The Emperor's death was broadcast across all communication channels, and the effect on the Krovik fleet was immediate. Ships that had been attacking suddenly stopped fighting. Some tried to surrender, others simply fled. "This is Captain Stone." "To all Krovik vessels," Stone announced. "Your Emperor is dead, your empire is finished. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly. Continue fighting, and you will share his fate." One by one, the Krovik ships powered down their weapons. The battle was over. Elder Keth's voice came over the radio, filled with emotion. "Captain Stone, you have done the impossible. The Krovik Empire is defeated. The galaxy is free." But Stone was thinking about more than just victory. On planets throughout the galaxy, billions of beings were learning that they no longer had to live in fear. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were free to choose their own destiny. "Elder Keth," Stone replied, "this is just the beginning. We need to make sure something like the Krovik Empire never rises again. The galaxy needs to be protected." Over the following months, representatives from hundreds of worlds came together to form the Galactic Defense Coalition. The humans, who had started as rescuers, became the protectors of galactic peace. The Zilani, grateful for their salvation, became humanity's closest allies. Dr. Amanda Foster, the scientist who had first detected the Zilani signal, was chosen to head the new Galactic Communications Network. Her job was to make sure that no cry for help would ever go unanswered again. Years later, when children throughout the galaxy learned about the Great War, they would remember one simple truth. When the Zilani called for help in their darkest hour, someone answered. That someone was humanity, and they had kept their promise. The message that spread throughout the stars was simple but powerful. When you cry out in darkness, humanity will hear you. When you call for help, we will come. This is our promise to the galaxy. And it was a promise that would never be broken.